Coming up on this episode of Wild Talk, I have the legend himself, Jim Shockey.
I wanted to get to Slovakia because I've heard about it. I've heard it's fabulous hunting there.
We talk stories, his mindset, and the legacy he wants to leave behind. Then Justin Biddle breaks down the tools of the trade with Umarex.
We've got a 50 caliber. It's called the Umarex hammer. It's 4,500 PSI, runs this thing. It will take down anything that walks the planet that has two lungs.
Real gear, real experience. This is Wild Talk. Welcome to Wild Talk, the untamed voice of Canada's outdoors, where raw stories, real people, and wild places collide. This episode of Wild Talk is one for the books. Let's talk wild. Wild Talk, powered by Better Call Paul, is brought to you by Better Hunting, Better Stories, Better Call Paul. Umarex, Hunt with Air. Bronc Beer, Great Buckin' Beer. All right, everybody, we're rolling into season 5 of Wild Talk here, and we're starting off with a bang. I've had Eva on the show before. I've had Branlin on the show before, and now it's time to talk to the man himself, Jim Shockey. Jim, a huge thanks for joining me today.
It's my pleasure. I had nothing better to do and nothing I'd rather do.
I don't know how to take that, I think. But
it means it's a compliment.
Oh, absolutely. I've had the chance to sit down with you before and interview, and I know what to expect from this side of things. So it's going to be a great chat. So, Jim, you need no introduction to most of my viewers, my listeners, and in general, the outdoor world itself. And you've lived a bigger than life career in the outdoors. So when you introduce yourself to somebody that doesn't know you, how do you describe what you do?
Yeah, that's actually a pretty funny question, or a relevant question, because I don't know how to answer. I literally don't know how to answer. I go, I'm an author, I'm a television producer, but I also am a hunter. It's and a life enjoyer. And my Louise soulmate, before she passed in 2023, that's what she called herself, was a life enjoyer. And you know what? That's pretty accurate. I don't think it works real well when you go to Revenue Canada and say I'm a life enjoyer, and I get paid for enjoying life. But essentially, that's what I do. I wake up every day and love what's going to happen in the day, anticipate it, look forward to it, and on a given day, I like this morning, I was pricing out all kinds of ethnographic art and artifacts for our gallery here in the museum, for sale. So I was an antique dealer this morning. Right now it looks like I'm a podcaster or a podcast guest. That doesn't pay as well, by the way, as the antique business. But yeah, it's very different. I don't know how pick one outfitter. There's a good one. I'm an outfitter.
No, I love that, life enjoyer, and I do remember seeing some posts about that with Wheezy. And last time you and I chatted, or just before that, we had dinner a few years ago at a banquet, and then just before that, I managed to get you and Wheezy popped in on the back of the podcast and came over and kind of said hello, and I just the look was just one of those ones that kind of hit you, and you just knew what kind of person she was and that she enjoyed life to the fullest, and you're doing that as well. So before we got rolling on this, I was chatting with my friend Amanda, who helped set this up. She works for you, and she said that you were there already unloading the truck, getting on with your day. So what does a normal day look like for you if something like that exists? Like, what do you do when you roll out of bed?
I got up at 4 this morning, and I went out. The one whole half of our house is heated with firewood, with a wood stove. So I put some wood on the fire just to keep it going, and then actually promptly fell asleep right in front of it for another hour. So I got up it was about 5:30. I got up, and at that point I have to catch up on emails. There was 120 emails waiting for me, and then you get texts from all over the world, and WhatsApps from all over the world. Then there's social media. I have to go through that, and I read every comment that people send in. So
Mm-hmm.
so that takes time, depending on what we posted. If I, some posts you get 1,000 comments. I mean, it's gonna take an hour to read them all. But I read all that, and then headed to the museum to. Well, actually, that's not true. I headed to our barn to pull out the Christmas tree. It's a Costco Christmas tree
Mm-hmm.
from previous years, and set it up in the house. So I did that. Then I came down to the museum and started working on pricing the pieces that came out of a collection that I bought yesterday. So that's, and I worked late last night doing the same thing, organizing. It's quite a big collection. Um, so of Inuit and Northwest Coast art. So that's what I'm doing. And as soon as we're done here, well, I think I've got another podcast. So I'll do this podcast and I do another podcast. I've got Fred Pringle coming to score
Oh
my
yeah, yeah.
caribou I left it in velvet, so it can't be scored for Boone and Crockett. It can only be scored for SCI. But it would be way up in Boone and Crockett. It was a monster, but I wanted to keep it in velvet. So it's already on a skeleton articulated. So Fred will be coming down. I've got a fellow, Zach, our sound engineer, is also a great musician. So he's also coming down during our podcast right now. This is all going to happen to look at the guitars, the vintage guitars we have, because I have to set them on a maintenance schedule that Zach can put together. Then I would do the second podcast. As soon as that's done, I head down to Victoria to pick up the rest of the collection. So that's an hour and a half drive down there, and try and get back before rush hour and unload it all. There's also a 100-pound mammoth tusk, about a 10-footer. It's absolutely gorgeous, that someone started restoring and pretty well wrecked. And we'll finish and correct the mistakes they made, but I'll unload that. Then we head down to the Oak and Carriage pub for the wine drawing for a charity that all our team, our names got already yanked, so we already lost, but we're on the loser side. So there, we want to be down there, and I've got my cousin Guy and my cousin Dave from Saskatoon coming out to that event as well. So that'll be a late night, I'm sure. And I'll get home and I will go crash.
And
But
repeat it the next day.
yeah, there's my day.
Wow. There's a lot more than meets the eye. People see you on social media and they just assume that you're traveling or you're playing in the museum, but there's a lot more than meets the eye to Jim Shockey. And I love being able to dig into a little bit of the personal side of what you do, because everybody looks at you in our space as the hunter and the world traveler. So I've had some questions when people figured or heard that I was going to be talking to you. A lot of the questions that came to me is, ask Jim how he got his start in the outdoor space.
The I always knew I would be doing something in the outdoor industry, but when I got out of university, I knew I also needed enough money to not be a guide only. My lifestyle is too expensive to. You just don't make enough money as a guide. But outfitters, you can make enough money if that becomes your entire life. Every day of the year you can travel somewhere, learn about these other outfitting operations around the world. So I knew I had to be an outfitter, but that meant I needed to have money. So I got into real estate development. I think I had 10 houses and 3 apartment buildings going up. I was like 21, 22, and I was the project manager on those. I put the money and the people together with the land, and then that 1981 interest rates went up to 23%, and I basically walked away from that career with my dog, my car, and my stereo, and the only good thing was the actual stereo, and nobody lost money, but I sure as heck got a reality check what interest rates can do to an economy. So that's when I started into the antique business. Figured I can buy something for $50 and sell it for 100 all day long. Go to garage sales, and it was all a process to make enough money to become an outfitter to get into the industry. So while I was doing that, I started writing. 1984, I wrote my first article for Bowbender magazine. Kathleen Windsor was the editor. I got $42 for that article. And that kicked off my writing career. But I was also doing antiques at that time, knowing that I was preparing for the day I would be an outfitter. I needed a profile. It's very difficult to start into our industry cold turkey. So I wanted a name, quote unquote, in the industry. So I wrote for probably 7 years, including down in the States. My article started getting published in the biggest magazines down there. And that gave me the springboard. And I'd saved enough money from antiques to buy my first outfitting territory and know that it wasn't going to fail. I had enough connections in the industry. Television was just starting to come on board back then. And, I guided for hunts on camera for ESPN in those days, and then ESPN2, and then the national network. As the networks all kind of dumped hunting, we got to smaller and smaller networks. And I started doing video DVDs, or well, VHSs in those days, to again, it was all part of the promotion for the outfitting territory to not fail, because it's an expensive thing to get into outfitting. You put a lot of money up. I mortgaged everything we had. Poor Louise in those days. I was an antique dealer when I met her, and she always said I bait and switched her. I was an art dealer, a fine art dealer, antiques, and suddenly switched over to being a scruffy outfitter in the mountains. But that was always my intention, and so yeah, that's how I got my start. I prepared, a position for myself in the industry with the writing, and that allowed me to sell the hunts when I did buy the outfitting territory. So it wasn't like we're struggling. Plus, it was great areas. I made sure I picked up
Mhm.
great areas on Pacific Rim and the north end of Vancouver Island for bears, and then Saskatchewan for whitetails, and the Yukon was my last outfitting territory, the Rogue River outfitting territory. That was right around the year 2000.
As I mentioned briefly earlier, we were at a banquet a few years ago on the island of Nanaimo, and you came in. I introduced myself to you and pointed out that there was a couple of anti-hunters in the crowd that had bought tickets to this conservation event, and you said immediately, without missing a beat, "Where are they? I want to address them." So you got up on stage, you had a polite banter back and forth, and it was absolutely incredible to watch you deal with this face to face in real time. And what I really thought was cool is you gave them a platform to be heard. And that has stuck with me ever since. How you took that criticism head on. I tell people about it all the time. And how has that approach helped shape how you deal with the pressure today, online and in person?
Uh, yeah, I never really worry about it. It's not I don't take it personally. People have opinions, and their opinions, especially if they're based on an ideology, are so staunch, so
Mm-hmm.
annealed inside their brains that you can tell them the truth. It's the truth. Here's the truth. This 2 + 2 equals 4. The sky's blue. You can tell them that, but it's cognitive dissonance with them, because they cannot allow an actual truth to assail their ideology. So, I mean, I feel sorry for them. I honestly feel sorry for them, because they're so intolerant of any other points of view that they actually can't handle the truth. In the words of Jack Nicholson,
Mm-hmm.
they can't handle the truth, and they can't hear it. So and they scream louder so they can't block out the sounds. I mean, that's a horrible life. That's a horrible, sad, and I mean, I could say pathetic, but that would be negative, so I won't do that. Although I just did in a way. They So I feel sorry for them, and so how can I? Yeah, I don't let that stuff bother me when I get somebody that's hurting that badly in their lives that they just have to, tunnel vision, and nothing outside of that is going to exist in my life. And I mean, horrible. horrible. I love discussions with people that have opposing opinions. I love it. Hey, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. And generally what you find is they all say, well, you're offending me, and you're being aggressive, and you're attacking me. No, I'm not. No, I'm actually not. I'm just explaining to you, here's some realities, and you don't want to hear it, but I'm not attacking you. But they get very defensive at that point and run away. So there's no, there's not even a dialogue possible with those people. I think at that event, what I did was I isolated them.
Mm-hmm.
I think I said, everybody stands up who wants more wildlife in British Columbia. Well, it's the BC Wildlife Federation. Everybody stood up, including the animal rights people. Now,
Mm-hmm.
everybody sit down who believes that hunting is part of conservation. And everybody sat down except for them. They're left standing. Say, oh, here you are. You're by yourself in the public now. You can't hide back in there. And I mean, your memory of it, me giving them a platform, wasn't exactly how it seems to me. They walked out with a "fu" and "fu."
Yeah.
They because they don't like, we have the same desires. We want more wildlife, so we are the same. I actually said that in the room. So we are all identical, the same. We all want more wildlife, and isn't that fantastic? We come together as one group to promote wildlife and conservation. That's why I said now everybody that believes hunting is part of conservation, sit down. Well, everybody sat down and left them standing, and they're they they're isolated in their points of view. And again, I just feel sorry for them. So it's not hate. I mean, I guess it's hate. I don't know. I don't use that word. I don't allow myself to ever use. I don't say I hate butter. I hate broccoli. I will never use that word because it's such a vile word to use. And I guess maybe they do hate. I don't know. But I don't take it personally. And that's on the hunting side, the animal rights guys. You can't reach them. You literally can't reach them. There's no point. There's no point in discussing anything with them because they're not open to any discussions. They're not tolerant of other points of view. And then there's the personal attacks on social media that are also, that's part of it. And I don't think that's hate. I lost Louise. Lived a fairy tale for 39 years, 113 days, 14 and a half hours. Literally, it was a fairy tale. Then I lost her. And it was 5 years of illness, 2 years where we knew what was wrong and, that it was hopeless. But 2 years we had together and knowing that every day was precious. And, then, we talked and she said, look, it's been rough. This has been rough and I love you. And I don't want you to be sitting at home lonely and depressed and suicidal. I mean, you need to, when I'm gone, you need to get out there and try and find somebody because you're not a person that can be by themselves. I don't even like myself. Why would I want to spend time with myself? She said, look for somebody. And in 6 months, give it 6 months. Don't choose before then, but in 6 months you choose. And now I'm remarried. I mean, everybody doesn't know that yet. On social media, we're just engaged, but I'm remarried. And that process, after Louisa was gone, when because I'm in public, and they see me with this lady or that lady, or and I was doing what Louisa wanted and what I needed to do for myself to be whole. Life goes on for me. Some people, great, they want to sit at home and hang on to that past. Have at it, but it's not my way of remedying that deep sorrow. It's not my way. So I was out going, okay, here we go. I'm back in the dating pool, and oh my gosh, the vitriol and and the attacks. So you never loved her. You were, but that's different than the animal rights attacks. Those people are ideologues. These people, they have their opinion. They haven't gone through it. The only ones that I listen to are the ones that have gone through it, lost a soulmate. And anyone out there right now listening, they understand what I'm talking about. It's something that you cannot possibly understand. You cannot possibly imagine, because imagination does not live in the dark black depths where sorrow exists, that deep sorrow. Imagination couldn't exist down there. If it did, we would never get married. We would never allow ourselves to love anybody. So they can't understand. They can only have their opinions, and they watch television and whatever, the James Gardner and the Notebook, and they die together. But that's fairy tale stuff. Like, and I don't mean happy, real fairy tales. I mean like Hollywood fairy tales.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is, everybody has their own way of coping with that tragic loss. And mine is to go, okay, I lived a wonderful life with Louise, and let's move on. We have to. I have no. She lives. I've never taken a picture down of Louise. Everyone's still up in the house, but I'm remarried and have new pictures that we're adding to that. And Louise is part of my life. Always will be. But the people on social media, of course, they don't see that. They don't understand. They haven't gone through it. So they think that's too quick. You need to suffer longer. And they don't think in terms of that. Sorrow. I need to be sad and lonely and depressed longer. Okay, what date? What date is okay for me to actually be happy again? And it takes strength to allow yourself to be happy, because it's a lot easier to be depressed. Way easier. You lost your soulmate. You lost the love of your life. You spent almost 40 years together and gone. Everything you hoped for, wished for, believed in, planned for, worked for is gone. Gone. So, how long are you also supposed to suffer? And these people don't understand that. They don't think in terms of the human side of it. They think in terms of, well, I mean, I think mostly they're worried that if they passed away, their own spouse will go find somebody. And that is the part that hurts most for them. Like, they can't bear that. Well, if you're in a true love relationship, you do not want your partner to suffer. You do not. That would be horrible. If it was me that was gone, I would tell Louisa, you are free. You do not mope and spend your rest of your life wearing black and a veil because of me. So anyway, back to the social media question. Those kind of vitriolic attacks on me, it's just water off a duck's back. I'll once in a while take someone to task and say, okay, wait a minute here. Let's just think about this for a second and look at it from this perspective. And I think it's helped more people than everybody else understands, because I get the DM, the direct messages saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. I lost my soulmate and I found somebody and I got married within 2 years. And the worst is if the family doesn't, be on board with you. They want you to keep suffering because it was their mother or their father that passed away. You should be that's all you could be with. Oh no, that's just not true. Life goes on, and you have to either live it or live it however you want. But I get the DMs, and people are very, very thankful that I live my life out in public and share it with everybody and say, this is what I'm going through. And God forbid it ever happens to anybody else, because it's the worst thing that you'll ever experience in your life. And unfortunately, every one of us is going to go through it, unless we're the lucky one that goes first. So 50% of us will. Anyway, back to the social media. I don't let the social media warriors. It's kind of entertaining, actually, to read the comments. I mean, they're kind of funny, and I'll try and be entertaining back if I take one of them to task.
Yeah,
so I don't worry about that stuff.
All right, we're back with more Wild Talk. I'm joined once again by Justin from Umarex. Justin, it's been a while. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you again.
So we're following up on our last conversation where we dug into Umarex and what sets them apart from the old school rifle where everybody thinks, well, if he's going to shoot his eye out. You talked a little bit about the technology there and some of the feet per second that people can get into, which is quite impressive. But what I want to know, we kind of got into it last time, is growing the sport for new shooters and how an airgun could be a great entry point for that. So why is Umarex a good choice for that?
Air guns are a really good choice to bring someone new into shooting sports. And that's what the way we look at it. We don't look at it just as bringing someone into air guns or experiencing air guns again, for some, in some cases, but shooting sports. So there's, with many air guns, there's no recoil. So, I mean, there's no big movement. And then there's no big sound a lot of times, so it takes that intimidation factor out for people, for someone that just hasn't shot before or has been very limited, had a limited exposure to it. So that could be with air pistols, it could be with rifles. And so, for instance, we have something called the Umarex Embark, and it's a small platform, single shot break barrel pellet rifle with open sights, very standard notch and post sights. And it's great to teach somebody on. And it's actually part of a program called the Student Air Rifle Program, which started in the States some time ago. And it's designed such that adolescents can be taught the disciplines of shooting, the safety mechanisms, what it means to pay attention to where your muzzle is at all times, and then to develop skills, to shoot a 10-meter target and get as tight a group as you can, and what it takes to do that, because there's so many variables, your heartbeat, your trigger squeeze, the way you hold it, the way you stand. So all those things are taught, and rifle shooting is an individual sport, or any shooting is an individual sport. And so that really opens up the opportunity for people to learn and experience something and improve upon themselves.
Yeah, completely agree. One of the worst things you can do for a new shooter is hand them something and give them a bad experience, like heavy recoil, and you ruin them. And an air rifle is a perfect way to do that. I got my daughter shooting my old school air rifle when she was about 3 or 4, and she loved it. Now she's graduated. She's got a 243 and she hunts with it. So it's a great way of breaking the ice, so to speak. So I can totally relate to that. But another direction I kind of wanted to go when we were setting up this interview is there's a lot of myths around air rifles. Is they're not accurate. You have to pump them up 500 times before you can get any sort of pressure behind them. What are some of the myths you would like to set straight?
I don't know. Well, you said accuracy. I guess that is one myth. It could be interpreted as a myth, but sometimes people will get an air rifle, a standard break barrel air rifle, and they'll break it over and they'll start shooting without having cleaned out the barrel, and it'll be really loud at first sometimes. Yep. And that they come right back and say, hey, this was loud. I thought it was supposed to be quiet. Well, did you clean the barrel? Did you put 50 to 100 pellets through it? It takes a little time to get a rifle to settle down. And then also accuracy is that you had mentioned. It's just like any other rifle, even a firearm. Some rifles like a certain weight and shape of pellet versus the other rifle right next to it. Your rifle might like an 11.9 grain pellet, and the other rifle might like a 12.5 grain pellet. So you got to spend a little time, and you can find a lot of that good information out online, because people, when a rifle comes out, people go and they'll test and they'll publish it for you.
So they're good. They're not only accurate, they're easy to maintain, great for new shooters. What are they like for hunting?
Well, for hunting, they're phenomenal. And really that varies. There's a lot of options. So you've got small bore for small game, medium bore for mid game, like a coyote size, 30 caliber would be great for that. But we got a 50 caliber. It's called the Umarex hammer. It's 4,500 PSI runs this thing. But it will take down anything that walks the planet that has 2 lungs. And I say that because there have been a number of Cape buffalo taken with the Umarex hammer.
I could have sworn I saw a mount of that at the sheep show about 5 years ago. It was a record, and it was taken down with an air rifle. It was a Cape buffalo. It was unreal. I've got a picture of it somewhere.
It's hard for people to wrap their mind around that an air gun can actually take an animal that big.
It sure is. So they're good from small game to everything up to a Cape buffalo. As you said, anything on this planet with 2 lungs. So before I let you go, got to do the shout out. Where can people find them?
Well, find out more about Umarex Airguns at umarexairguns.com, and find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all those good things.
Awesome. Huge thanks for joining me once again, Justin.
Thank you, Steve. We'd appreciate it.
This is the Umarex hammer, and this is one of the coolest air rifles you'll ever have the pleasure of shooting. This thing is awesome. It has more than enough knockdown power to shoot moose, elk, deer. However, the laws may not have caught up to it in Canada yet. You'll have to check your regulations and the laws in your area. But in Alberta, you can't actually use these to hunt big game yet, but I'm sure it'll come. And when it does, people are gonna love hunting with this thing. The tank on it will hold up right around 4,500 PSI. You get roughly 4 shots. You get 3 100% full power shots, and then the last one's about 90%. This thing has everything in mind. Comes with the rail, so you can mount whatever kind of scope. It's accurate out to 200 yards. It has your safety here. It actually has a lockout pin here as well that you have to unscrew in order to use the air gun. If it's not unscrewed, you won't be able to push the bolt forward. This one you need a compressor to charge or a hand pump. 4,500 PSI, probably take you a long time with a hand pump, so definitely get the compressor. Well worth it. So the hammer comes with 2 of these little magazines. You load your pellets in here. I've got 2 different types here. I've got the flat nose ones, which are 350 grains, and I have the hollow point ones, which you would use for hunting, and these are 320. So the air hammer pushes out the 350 flat nose somewhere, muzzle velocity is right around 900 feet per second. It's gonna be a little faster with the hollow points, but not by much. We pump this thing up to 4,500 PSI, which is the maximum it'll hold. So now we're going to get into how to load it. We're gonna start with the 350 grain flat points. All you do is make sure you're putting them in the right way and push them into the clip like so. This little piece is super important. They have an extra safety mechanism on the hammer. So if this is screwed all the way in, it will not function. The slide will not go forward. All right, super simple to load. Goes in one way, just like this. I don't know if this is what this is for, but this is a great little spot here. They got a little pocket. There we go. Put that in there so you don't lose it. All right, we're ready to go. I forgot my shooting bags at home, so Frank's dog food bag is gonna be what we're gonna use. Push forward, now you're ready to go. Safety on, obviously. No finger on the trigger. Always practice smart firearm safety. And we're gonna shoot. So let's see if our turkey downrange is gonna end up as supper. Ooh, supper. Look at that. Okay, and cycle. You're ready for the next shot. And the next shot. So let's do a quick change. We're gonna empty this thing right out all the way. In it goes. %. And there's the air hammer. Almost down to 0. So again, 3 full power shots, 1 90%, and we're gonna have to put the compressor back on this and pump it back up again because it's really fun to shoot. Really, this thing shoots more like a muzzle loader, the feel of the recoil, than center fire cartridge like a 243 or 270. It's got a lot of pop, it's got a lot of pep, and again, it'll knock something down 100, 200 yards without a problem. Another feature I really like about this is it has your air pressure, just like the Air Saber, has an air pressure gauge so you can see how many shots are left and how much pressure is still in that little tank. And that's something I can't get over. 4,500 PSI in that little tank. One of the other things I really like about the hammer, the bolt is a straight throw. It's only 8 pounds to cock it and put it and reload. And the trigger is only a 2.5 pound trigger. So it's nice, it's not super heavy, set at the perfect weight for most folks. I mean, I'm sure you can adjust it if you really dug into it and if you really wanted to, but it suits me just fine. Most of my rifles are set right around that weight anyways, and it's accurate. The hammer and the Saber need to be pre-filled. This unit will push it up to 4,500 PSI on the hammer. It doesn't take super long to recharge the tank. You can actually take this in the field with you too. It has 2 spots here on the side and it comes with a set of jumper cables to hook up to your car battery, and you can actually power the compressor in the field right from your battery. Now, I did try and plug it into an inverter that I have in my Jeep. Not enough to kick it over and get it started and running, so if you're in the field, you definitely have to use the booster cables and run it through this portion of the compressor. The compressor itself, you actually set it to the PSI that you want and hit on, and off it goes, and it'll actually shut off automatically when it hits the designated PSI that you set it for. So definitely a must-have. It'd take a long time to pump up an air rifle with a hand pump. Super easy to hook up to the compressor. A little spring-loaded. Just push it on till it clicks, and then fire up the compressor, and it charges right up, shuts off when you hit the desired PSI. Umarex, I think, said it best. They didn't alter the laws of physics, they just used them to their advantage. And that's apparent with the air hammer. This is a crazy, crazy gun. A lot of fun to shoot.
That's a little bit about the personal side of Jim Shockey there, which I really wanted to dig into, and appreciate you opening up for that, Jim. That's amazing. But I want to talk a little bit more about hunting, and when we're talking international hunting, you just came back from Slovakia. So was that your first time there? How was that?
Yeah, first time in Slovakia. I mean, I spent a lot of time in the 70s in the Soviet era behind the Iron Curtain, but in Hungary and East Berlin and East Germany. But I never made it to Czechoslovakia in those days. So I really wanted to get there this time. And I've hunted Romania and all the other countries around there, and a lot of the Yugoslav countries that are now, Macedonia and Serbia. And I wanted to get to Slovakia because I've heard, well, number one, my antecedents, my 23andMe comes back as I'm Czech, on my mom's side. So, that's something I wanted to go there and see if there was anybody that looks like, me over there. More importantly, my grandmother, and my
Right.
aunts. They have a very Slavic look to them, and I wanted to see what the hunting's about because I've heard about it. I've heard it's fabulous hunting there, and really, I was impressed. The hunt in Slovakia guys, Thomas, they're fabulous. Anybody that's looking at going to Slovakia, and relatively affordable, and if you hit the rut right, and I hit the fallow deer rut bang on. So I've never seen anything like that. The fallow deer that were, wah, 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 I mean, everywhere around us, and yet try and find them a month earlier, a month later, it's tough. They're like ghosts, gone. But right during that rut, it was incredible, and I could pick and choose and find a monster. Red stag, the roar was pretty much over, so it was a lot tougher hunt, and the mouflon rut hadn't started yet. So that was also a little tougher. But I also you can hunt nutria there, which I've never hunted. And I want one for the museum. And I know you can hunt them down in Florida. I think you can, I don't know, but that's where I've only heard them being. But they have them there. So I hunted a nutria for the museum. And the main animal I went after was a marten over there. They have a stone marten and a pine marten. And I was after the pine marten, which is a yellowy, hopefully I don't have these backwards, but they are yellowy colored in the big white patch. And I want for my museum an example. And I've hunted them before in Croatia, but never got one. So I spent a lot of evenings trying to get one. So this time I told them ahead of time, look, I want martens. They're very important to me. Those little critters, most outfitters are just not set up for it. But Thomas, 2 months before, got his guides scratching their heads trying to figure out, okay, how can we do this? And we see them on, driven hunts sometimes with the dogs. Maybe we can drive a marten. And that's what they did. They found fingers of forest and then set me up. And the second drive, a marten came running on it. I was a little bit behind it on the first shot. I got it with 1 pellet or 2 pellets, but then got it on the second one. But if I'd have missed, they would have been, like so distraught. But they were over the moon excited, and there was like 6 of them working on this, this bush push, and they were so excited because they did it. They accomplished that goal of getting a marten. So yeah, that I loved it. Slovakia was incredible. Hunt in Slovakia, Thomas Minch, I think his name is. You want to look it up. He's a great outfitter. I have a feeling in Europe he's going to be one of the very biggest, if he's not already, but in the future he's going to be a name to reckon with.
As we start to wrap this up, Jim, I want to turn this over to you for what might be an easy question, but might not be, is now that you're this far into your career, what do you hope your legacy is for the future?
I would love for people to remember me as that he made a positive difference on the non-hunting public's opinion of hunting and hunters. He made a difference. He reached into a world that, yes, to our kindred spirits out there, we all get it. But I'm hoping that the efforts I've made to reach outside of the hunting world and explain to people out there that hunting and hunters are an honorable group of people, and it's an honorable tradition. It brought us to the dance. That's why we're here. And to pay respects to that is, hunters should be showered in accolades as opposed to, vilified. So I would hope that that's what people remember me as. I mean, there's tangible things that I'll leave. Like this museum is 17,000 square feet, and once I get done paying all the extortion, from the government here, it'll be another 5,000 square feet. So over 20,000 square feet of natural history and cultural arts, with the messaging being conservation. That's the educational side of it. And that's going to last beyond me. I've already started the process of giving it all away to a foundation. We created it. Louise and I started that process. Finally got that done. It's amazing how much you have to spend to be able to give things away. And so now we're in the process of getting every single thing documented, curated, and appraised to be able to donate it into that foundation. This museum will be the legacy. The family knows that. Eva Bramlin, I've told them, look, you want to see your inheritance, come on down to the museum and look at it. It belongs to the community. That's where you made your money. That's what you should give it back to. And you guys can make your own money. And they, Eva's doing fine, and so is Bram there. And there will still be, our private properties that they'll get when I'm gone. But yeah, this museum will be probably the legacy that I'll leave. And I'll have the board of directors handcuffed. They'll pay expenses for 40 years in an endowment. So all they can do is, unlock it in the morning, lock it up at night. They can't politicize it, can't change it, can't make it politically correct because the winds of time right now are saying this is what we like or don't like. It's a museum. Museums need to be above politics. So this will probably be the legacy. And then there's all the articles I've written, and those shows will probably be running around. People will be laughing, saying, look how funny they dressed back in those days, whatever. But yeah, ultimately what I really would like is that people remember me for that. And maybe that he helped people understand that we get one life. So every single day of this one life is precious, and don't waste it, and don't listen to other people that are trying to tell you to be sad and morose and you should be doing it this way. No, live your life. It's your life. Don't waste it. You get one of them, one crack at it. So every single day is precious, and don't let other people try and steal that day from you. So I'm hoping maybe that too, that I was by example, show people how to live this one life in a true to yourself way. Yeah. That'd be nice.
Yeah, and what a life you've lived, Jim. I think that's an absolutely perfect way to wrap it up. Huge thank you to you for joining me today and everything that you're doing for the hunting and the outdoor community.
That's my pleasure. I wish I could do more.
Wild Talk, powered by Better Call Paul, is brought to you by Better Hunting, Better Stories, Better Call Paul. Umarex, hunt with air. Bronc beer, great buckin' beer.